Hey, what's
Bada
going on?
bing, bada boom. Hey, hey, hey. What is up, dude?
Exercise? Oh man, I'm excited for today's episode. Hanging out. It's a Monday, but it's always a good day because we get to stream on Discourse
Yeah,
Syndicate and talk to the gang, see what the Hex audience is up to, and hopefully give everybody some good information and knowledge on the old nutrition and fitness space. And today,
yeah.
probably more so on the nutrition side, with you leading the
Yes,
way on
sir.
multivitamins, taking supplements, etc. I'm sure we'll get a lot of interesting questions as we typically do. Almost, I feel like every week on specifically like some sort of like vitamin.
Yeah.
It makes its way into the conversation somehow.
Yep. Yeah, there's always, it seems to be lots of really hot specific vitamins or specific minerals or specific like supplements in general. And then lots of times if someone's pointing to those as being like an issue or a good supplement, they oftentimes do have like an idea for what it's going to do. Um, I think in general, like the big thing I see is just it's people overweight like the actual effect of that supplement or that mineral or that vitamin in isolation. So if you are here and you've got a vitamin that you like, or you've got a supplement that you like, or anything really, let's hear about it. And if I know some stuff about it, I'll try to talk about it, or Ryan will try to talk about it. Or if you hear something I don't like, or you hear something I say that you don't like, please make sure to chime in, and we'll go back and forth a little bit. But yeah, I always look forward to Mondays. I like getting in here and just kind of shooting shit about these topics. This is uh, where I spent a whole bunch of my education and life learning and training. Um,
Yeah,
so when I'm not like instructing about this stuff, I don't really talk to many people about it. I don't get to go back and forth like this. So this is, I think, like, I don't know, a really, really great just like platform to bring up discussion and bring up discourse. Hey, hey, hey. Um, whether it be controversial, whether it be an agreement or disagreement, whatever idea or opinion you have, like let's get it out there and let's talk about it. And
yeah,
today,
well
yeah,
said.
so I'm not I wouldn't classify myself a nutrition expert. Like when I went through my bachelor's and my master's, I probably took 2 or 3 classes um, dedicated to nutrition, but nutrition heavily intertwines with physiology, and that is where I would say that I am like quite seriously advanced in. I took a lot of years and a lot of classes and did a big research project, and then have since been lecturing and instructing as it pertains to physiology specifically. So a lot of the nutrients that affect physiology, right, are filtered down from what goes into your mouth, your food, and your drink. So that is where I get to look at them specifically, how they relate to physiology. So it's a little bit different, but I definitely do have a decent amount of experience in nutrition, and started a master's in nutrition while I was working at the university, but just wasn't really getting a lot out of it. So after, I think I did 4 classes or something, and then was like, don't know if I want to pay anymore for
You're
school.
like, I'm out, man.
Man, there's so much good information like kind of just at your fingertips nowadays. You that like I do think traditional education is on its way out. It's
That could be its own topic in and of
right?
itself,
Like
right?
that it's
Yeah.
the universities and like academia have kind of, yeah, like they're not improving the quality of education anymore. At one point in time, I think it was really like the bastion of knowledge and learning and instructing. But now there is so much education available, and there's been a lot of people talk about what they envision, like what's going to happen, like with the world of education moving forward, and that's going to be like the best instructors and the best teachers are going to have
Yeah.
um, millions of students online, right? You're going to go to the best educator, right? You're not going to go to a university that costs, I don't know, 10K per semester and just get thrown some random instructor, right, who you may or may not like. You do get a little bit of agency there, right? You might be able to research an instructor, and maybe they have done their homework, and maybe they've prepped for lecture, and maybe uh, they actually like follow some of the research. But there's a lot of maybes in there, you know? So
Yeah, hasn't really kept up with the pacing of, like you said, the internet and how people can articulate and adapt to, you know, oncoming trends and skill sets in industries. So you see these shifting industries and people taking applicants more and more without degrees. And yeah, who knows where that's going to go. I even told my girl, I'm like, listen, I don't think, you know, when we have a kid, I'm like, I don't think they're going to go to college. She's like, what? They're going, whoever it is going to college. I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know if it's going to be something that makes sense. Like, we'll assess when the time comes, but this rate, yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a big industry that I think is up next or up soon for disruption, like a lot of things have been by technology. It's still like you got, I mean, like I'm guilty of this. I stand up at the front with like usually some sort of slides, and like you're about to see here, I'm gonna go back to some roots here and use some slides and kind of talk at you. And I do really think that's effective. But yeah, lots of room for changes to be made there and disruption to be had. So
Just
today,
like with the industry, right? You see an industry
yes,
that's
sir.
still somehow with the prevalence of information everywhere, because there is so much misinformation. You see people constantly saying things like, hey, you know, my mother always told me to take, you know, 1/2 teaspoon of vitamin A special sauce and a vitamin D pill and this and the vitamin C supplement whenever I'm sick, and I'm like, I was Gucci, right? That was it. That was what we were told. So you still see even stuff like that coming in. It's not to knock people who have had experiences like that. My mom has said some interesting things to me too about nutrition that I came to find out were not true. But the point is, you know, we are here to give you guys transparency as it pertains to the field of science, this exercise will get into, and as it pertains to the field of psychologically, you know, in terms of how people interact and operate with current cultural climate as well as the infrastructural climate we have to do something like caring about our nutrition or being active in the gym and all that good stuff and how to break it down. So this should be a good one. So if you guys, like Exercise said, have experiences, I'll say, with supplements, with vitamins, with things or habits or myths or rumors or things you've heard, pop them in the chat. We'll pull them up because it's probably something we've heard before. And if not, no biggie. We'll talk about it either way, probably. So
Yes, sir.
definitely pop off if you have something to add in.
I agree. So we got a few people in here already. Bit Finesse, see, he's a regular, I believe. Does kale count? Kale technically does not count as a multivitamin. I'm sure you're trolling a little bit here, but it is pretty nutrient dense. So lots of vitamin. So I guess you could, in a way, call it a multivitamin if that's what you're saying. And Sandy Beach, we've seen you before. Hello, hello. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, like Ryan said, get in here with some comments, with some disagreements with your favorite supplement or mineral or whatever it may be. I'm going to pull up slides. This is kind of the way I was brought up, or the way I've spent my time going through information, or at least disseminating information. I think it's effective, and I'm going to do my best to try not to bore you. So before I even comment about if a multivitamin is good or if supplementing vitamins is good or bad, I bet you guys can already guess what I would say about that. Would I call them bad? Would I call them good? I'll try and give you like my
Someone's
statement,
gonna give you an aneurysm, bro.
right?
Someone's gonna come in and be like, "Yo, this vitamin D shit is
Yeah,
real bad, man."
yeah. So I'll try to give you my very clear and clean cut statement about them towards the end. But you can probably already guess what I would say, or like how I'm gonna set up my statement. But first, before I even do that, I just thought it'd be a really good recap to just say like, hey, when we're talking about vitamins, like what the shit are they? Like, are they calorie containing? A lot of people might not be so sure or certain of what a
Yeah.
vitamin specifically refers to. So this very first slide, you probably recognize. I can't remember which episode I would have referenced this in, but there's two main classes, macro and micro. Macro contains calories, so they are energy bearing, right? You can actually gain weight from consuming those. Micronutrients do not have any calories, no energy, but they do perform some very, very essential roles in the body. So when it comes to energy and growth, those will come from your macronutrients. When it comes to other processes within your metabolism or specific things that are happening, oftentimes there are vitamins and minerals, maybe even macronutrients, that are lending towards that process to happen. So if you have um, enough vitamins and minerals, that process will happen as normal. If you don't have enough, it might not happen, or it might happen at a slower rate. All right. So pretty easy. There's a little diagram here in a bit that'll show you like where or what processes certain vitamins or certain minerals might help with. But main thing you need to know is they help with metabolism. And metabolism is a big, broad word, right? It's not really specific. There are a million and one things going on in your body at any given time. Oftentimes, vitamins and minerals are just helping facilitate those, kind of catalyzing them, if you will. So vitamins versus minerals, right? Oftentimes those end up getting grouped together. Like if you're taking a multivitamin, I'm pretty sure almost all of them contain minerals. So they are quite similar, but at the same time, there are some major differences. I'll focus on vitamins to start. And when you hear about vitamins, you've probably heard about this. If you're taking a multivitamin, most people taking a multi are relatively educated on the topic. So you've probably heard fat soluble versus water soluble. So this is the first differentiation to make when we're talking about a vitamin, right? Vitamins, actually, let's go there first. The definition of a vitamin: organic substances that participate in some sort of metabolism. All right, it's basically a carbon containing structure or compound. Can be found all over the place. The fat soluble vitamins require fat or some sort of emulsification to get transported across the membrane and absorbed into the body. Fat soluble. Here's a few examples. If you're taking a multi, you've probably seen this abbreviated just as ADEK, or that's a pretty common acronym that people use to remember the fat soluble ones, because typically these are the ones that are a little more not important, but there's a few particular rules around these as opposed, not rules, nuances, I guess, to these as opposed to water soluble. So water soluble, again, is pretty much the rest outside of ADEK. You've probably heard of many of these. Most of them are in like the B vitamin family. And to get transported across the membrane or to get absorbed, all you need is water, a solution of water and whatever this vitamin is. All right. So again, if you are a multivitamin taker and you've read the back label, you've probably seen consume with food. And that is because these vitamins specifically, and certain minerals or certain other substances, require an emulsification or a fatty acid or a cholesterol to actually be absorbed with. So if there's no fat being taken in with these vitamins, your body is going to be unable to actually absorb them and therefore use them. Okay, fat soluble. The one nuance that comes with these is that the fat soluble ones can then become a little more dangerous, or you just need to be a little more careful around them. It's because they can actually get stored in fat. So it's a little bit easier to overdose on fat soluble. When it's water soluble, it's really easy to just flush out through pee. When it's fat soluble and it gets stored with fat, that's where like our upper limits can actually get reached.
What do you mean by overdose here?
So overdose, I might have misspoke. I misspoke there. I'm going to say upper limit, and I'll try to define that
Sure.
as well. So when it comes to any vitamin or mineral or any substance, there is an upper limit that's associated with adverse effects, right? You can have too much, right? It's not just good until the cows come home. You can't just have buckets and buckets of a certain substance. Eventually, you might hit a threshold or a certain amount where we start to see bad things happen, right?
Okay.
So we'll have kind of there's a few different ways that that the FDA tries to classify this. Again, usually ADEK are the most common culprits when it comes to hitting your upper limit or going over it and then having adverse effects happen because they are harder to get rid of, right? Because sometimes you can
Gotcha.
just fully store them in your fat. So yeah, overdose, not so much per se, but there's an upper limit where if you're absorbing too much into your actual body, then we can see some bad things happen.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you. Good question. So yeah, water soluble, a lot easier to just kind of flush out and get rid of as opposed to the fat soluble ones. So here's just a quick overview of where a lot of these vitamins go to serve functions, right? They go and help with a lot of things, with your bones, with your actual, like when people think of metabolism, this is what they think of is energy metabolism. But technically, the pathway down to helping bone health is like metabolism. The pathway to growth is metabolism. The pathway to red blood cell formation is metabolism, right? This is kind of the main hallmark of what people think of when they hear metabolism. So vitamins are in helping in a lot of areas. So I don't want to come away from this sounding like I have a negative view on vitamins. I think that might be what people have taken away previously as we've referenced them. They are definitely beneficial and helpful to do a lot of things in the human body. A lot, all over the place. Minerals, very, very, very similar to vitamins. I think like for like all intents and purposes, you can pretty much consider them the same. I remember them as like minerals are usually more elemental. Like a vitamin is some sort of compound, a carbon-containing compound, and a mineral is oftentimes like a full-blown like physical element, like calcium, like iron, things like that. And again, there's going to be recommendations and upper limits for minerals, right? We had two classifications for minerals at the start there. You had major and trace. Major was just saying if you require more than 100 milligrams, it's considered a major mineral. If it's less than that, we consider it a trace mineral. So just a few different categories for vitamins and minerals and kind of like the roles that they might play. So again, minerals all over the place here. Lots of touches all over the place, helping out big time. So very, very important that you have adequate vitamins and minerals. Now, the big question then is like, how the heck do we determine that, or how do we measure that? So when you see like a food label, or maybe you're tracking your calories, or maybe you see some sort of layout or recommendation of how much of a certain thing you should be getting, it's a little bit convoluted. We've got a whole bunch of terms to actually like try to display or to try to really say what you need to get or how much somebody should be getting. So when you're looking at food labels, or when you're looking at recommendations or multivitamin bottles, you might see any, like a percentage related to any of these. Most often it will be over here, RDA, or adequate intake. So these are terms that the FDA uses to try to translate exactly how much you should be getting and how much you or if you go too far, right? So this upper limit, you'll see it as a UL. That's the tolerable upper limit intake. I shouldn't have said overdose. It's just where we like to see the maximum, right? So the roof of how much you're getting. So typically when we're talking about food and minerals and vitamins specifically, we're going to focus on RDAs and adequate intakes. So the RDA is the daily allowance, right? The big problem here is like the data for this stuff is kind of like convoluted and dispersed all over the place. So it's really, really tough to actually sit down and say, hey, you should be getting this much of vitamin A, this much of vitamin B, this much C, this much D. So when we do have a decent amount of data to back up, it's considered an RDA, and that is speaking to the general population. I probably should have prefaced this right at the very start. All the statements I'm going to make are to the general quote unquote healthy population, right? Not somebody with a specific deficiency or a specific condition or a specific disease. And then adequate intake, nutrient levels that are assumed adequate, right? We're almost guessing, honestly, at that point. We're assuming that it's adequate because we don't have enough data to actually say, hey, for most people, this should be the RDA. So a lot of these are kind of like guesses. And then your upper limit, this is when we do have like a pretty notable adverse effect that happens if you consume too much. And then you'll see, hey, don't have more than 1,000 milligrams of this per day or per serving or whatever it might be. You might also see some of these. These are usually in reference to calories or macronutrient containing. AMDR, EER, estimated energy requirement, estimated average requirement. This one you might see oftentimes EAR, estimated average. And the other thing to take note of is that the values that you see, we'll go look at a few values in a little bit here, are averages. It's not, hey, if you didn't hit 100 milligrams exactly today, you're screwed for the day. It's an average that we should be shooting for. Now we can kind of try to make an analogy here with calories, right? If you get too many calories in one day, it's okay to go a little bit under the next day and kind of zoom out and look at a weekly average, right? A moving average or a monthly. Now, vitamins and minerals, you probably want to make sure you're around a weekly average, but again, people get really hung up in specifics and being perfect here, where they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't get 1,000 milligrams of vitamin D. I need to go take a couple tabs to make sure I hit that. And we're looking at all of this data, all of these recommendations are being translated from averages. All right, is a pretty important note to make. So this is what a food label looks like. I'm sure everyone has seen it. When you see percentages here, I'm not sure if you can see all the way zoomed in here, but you'll probably, on the back of a food label, they'll give you a percentage when it comes to certain vitamins and minerals. And sometimes that's based off the RDA. Sometimes that's based off the AI. Sometimes it's based off of another value. Usually, if it's available, they will shoot to base it off the RDA.
Where are they getting that information from, right?
That's yeah, so that's FDA data, and I think they do a pretty good job of distilling those values.
okay.
But it's also like shooting for the recommended training numbers, right? So when we get down to the end here at like kind of what's recommended, it's like this is what's recommended for kind of like good or optimal outcomes. Is it necessary to maintain? Like you definitely want to make sure you have all the components necessary for promoting health, right? But I think like when people get hung up on specific values of a specific vitamin, it just starts to take away from kind of like what's going on. Similar to when we prescribe exercise, it's like, hey, you need to be doing 5 days a week of cardio, 3 days a week of lifting, getting this many minutes of it starts to kind of you start to lose the forest for the trees. It just starts to get convoluted, right? So those values, we'll get down to like some of the actual ones here, but it's really tough to get down to an actual number from like randomized control trials. It's like, well, we had like 50,000 people in this trial, ages 20 to 50. Like, who knows
Yeah.
what the heck they were doing day in and day out. We did have them take this, like pretty certainly most of the time, right? So it's a lot messier than a lot of these bottom line numbers make it. And then I think one of the big problems that is created is people take that bottom line number and they're like, holy smokes, if I don't get 1,000 IUs or 10,000 milligrams of this, I'm going to be unhealthy or I'm going to be in
Sure.
trouble. And that is just not necessarily the case. So I do say that vitamins and minerals obviously extremely like essential. You need them to live. You need them to carry out some of these processes. Do we need to supplement them? That is a much bigger and more loaded question. So here, really quickly, I'll go through, just scroll through some of these, right? You can go look these up. They're on the FDA. So a lot of people might say like the FDA sucks at compiling data like this. You might have a point there. I think it's really, really tough to compile like this much data and then break it all the way down to some sort of RDA or
Just men and
adequate,
women, where the
right?
rate range on those men and women are going to be so
Yeah.
wildly different,
Oh,
especially these
absolutely.
days, right? That's
Hmm.
obviously something that's a big deal too.
Absolutely. Their physical activity level is a huge one. Their diet composition is a huge one, right? So this is saying 900 micrograms total, not 900 micrograms from a vitamin A pill, 900 micrograms total, right? From all sources that you're consuming, whether it be drink, food, supplement, you name it. So you can go find these readily. This is all FDA data, and it's pretty darn good. I'm not gonna like sit over here and say like, hey, if you go a year without hitting these, like you're gonna be in serious trouble. I don't know. That's probably not even the case, but I do think they are helpful and they do some good. So another, again, just like tables upon tables here of kind of like what we're suggesting or what is being suggested as an RDA or an adequate intake, as well as upper limits, especially alongside certain vitamins and minerals that are known with having adverse effects at certain levels. All right. So what this kind of leads to is like if you wanted to distill this down into like I think like actionable advice or like actionable points is that it's probably a good idea to follow a healthy eating pattern over the lifespan. Now, yeah, we could try to like discuss what healthy eating pattern means. I think the generic understanding of what that means is probably good enough. Focusing on variety, nutrient dense foods is probably a good idea. Limiting calories from added sugars and saturated fats and reducing sodium is probably a good idea. Shifting to healthier food and beverage choices, probably a good idea. Support healthy eating patterns for all. Overall, I think if you engage in these, you're probably going to hit most of your targets, or at least get close enough to these targets that you will have good outcomes and you won't be lacking to the point of having adverse outcomes. So that is just a very, very quick sum up of kind of like what vitamins and minerals are, and then where a lot of like these ideas come from, where some of this data comes from that ends up with companies producing a multivitamin supplement that they're like, hey, there's 1,000% of your daily needs in our vitamin, right? Lots of times you'll see multivitamins where it's 1,000% of something on your back, on the back label, or even 10,000. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at the back label of one in a long time.
Yes, so
But
some are really pumping up those numbers, aren't they?
they'll pump in a whole bunch. And it's like, is it beneficial to take in 10,000% of my daily my recommended daily allowance of vitamin C in one dose? Like the emergency one is like really popular, especially when it's like
Oh man, yeah.
cold and flu season, right? People are like, hey, get your emergency in you. And it's like, well, if you take that much, you will pee all, like 95% of it out, like in the next 30 minutes to an hour or so.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
So let's use an example here in the States, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is me asking because I want to gain further awareness on this too. Let's take the average American who is likely deficient in many of these things, even if they're overeating, right? Because they could be overeating on, and not even for the sake of gaining weight or losing weight, but just overeating. And you would assume, hey, this person should be getting all their daily multivitamins and minerals, or minerals and vitamins because they're eating so many calories. But a lot of those calories could come from like a Coca-Cola, for example, right?
Sure.
So
Okay.
even though they're eating a higher calorie intake. So the point is you have the average American typically, I'd say an average eating 2,700. And from my experience, I've noticed a lot of people, and this is of course just very one-off with my own experiences. I've noticed a lot of them continuing to get blood panels and doctors telling them that they're deficient in vitamin D, and they're absolutely recommending a multivitamin, even if some of the areas are like wildly overshot, because
Mm-hmm.
the diet now at this point in America is so off kilter. They're thinking that the better way to combat at least the short-term deficits of these vitamins and minerals that people are likely getting because they're going to Wendy's for one of their main meals and then having maybe one normal meal and some alcohol at night, for example, and they're deficient in probably 30% of what they should be getting, probably 4 to 6 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
What I guess the question I have is in terms of absorption rate and for that kind of person, because I feel like that's like the normal, the average. What do you think a use case for a pretty standard, not overkill multivitamin that's standard and or something more targeted like I have been noticing because I don't recommend that stuff. I'm not an MD, but I have a lot
Mm-hmm.
of clients who say, hey, said MD has said, based on my blood panel, I should get this and this. Now, could they also get a majority of it from a healthy diet? Yes, that's obviously the last line. That's obvious. But as we both know, is that going to happen anytime real soon based on everything else we talk about on this show? Probably not. Probably not. So yeah, that's my question is how much of a use case do you think, as long as people understand what you have been talking about, like, hey, some of these are absolutely overkill, there is a very specific kind of use case for this. Like, do you think there is a use case for someone with a wildly inadequate diet? Let's call it what it is, right? Wildly inadequate, not balanced, but I think that that's kind of the majority of people here in America. How do you feel about that as a use case for some of these? And if there is a use case, what would you recommend?
Okay. I definitely do. I'm going to say yes, there can be a use case. Um, I think it's going to be mainly case by case. So the next thing I wanted to, sorry, I'll try to distill my thoughts.
Sure.
So for the average American, I don't think it's in like, it's not in, I'm not sure what phase or what part, like if I was going to be recommending the average American like take steps to better their health and fitness overall, whether it comes to nutrition or physical activity,
Yeah.
including a multivitamin is not included in like my generic list of advice.
Sure.
Um, for a couple of reasons, I guess. Number one, I don't know like some of their specific issues. If there are like specific problems or issues that they can point to
Yeah.
that might be like, oh, holy smokes, this might be a deficiency, then like at that point, it's like, hey, you should go get some blood work done, or you should go see a doctor. If it's something that's like really remedial and like I'm super familiar with, I might say, hey, it might be a good idea to include one of these, but it's almost always fairly, I'm not going to say easy, but achievable to get it from diet.
Okay, that was gonna be my follow-up question too. Is if not, would you assume that even with some of the less than ideal choices, eating out a lot, fast food, sodas, typically things that aren't going to be as good as what we would recommend, obviously, do you think people are still adequately hitting most of these most of the time, and that's why you typically don't see bigger
Mm.
issues in that regard?
I think they're a lot closer to the recommendations than a lot of people think. Um, So I plugged in a few. So we'll mess around with a few different foods in here. But I put in
Okay.
just chicken breast, white rice, and spinach, and not too much of it. So this is if you're eating chicken and rice and spinach for every single meal, right? A lot of people might think, holy smokes, that you will be deficient on that. If you go and look at what we're hitting here, we're getting pretty darn close. And so this is Chronometer. This is one of the app tracking ones that we looked back in the day. Again,
Yeah.
they're aggregating this data and using mainly RDAs, in some case, adequate intakes, right?
Okay.
Across the board here, for the most part, I think it's getting close enough to being like, I would say, so this is my guess. Like I'm not a dietitian, right? I think, did Sandy say she was actually a dietitian? Because I'm not sure like if she did, or maybe she
In our
was,
chat today,
I can't
no, she
remember.
didn't say
She
anything
might
about
have
our
been
chat today.
dietitian, or she might have been something else in that line.
Maybe she was a nurse
Um,
or something. I can't remember.
anyways, I think if you were within like a standard deviation or two of the average here, you're not going to see like it's not going to present itself in an adverse way. So for example, like what do we have here at 50%? And B12, right? B12 here is hitting 51% of the RDA. I do not believe that if you continue to consume a diet that's hitting 50% of B12 I do not believe that will lead to adverse effects. There might be specific cases where it can, but on the average, I don't think it does. Right. So a lot of these are great targets and great averages. That's
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest misleading things is that with like these RDAs and these AIs is that they're developed off of averages for the like 20 to it's the average of what was the number there? 98, like not that's good for 95 to 98% of people of a healthy, quote unquote, healthy population. So there's just like the standard deviation might be so huge on a lot of these that it's like if we're getting 56% day in and day out, like that could be fine for a lot of individuals.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think this is a perfect diet by any means. It was just a really limited one.
Oh, of
Like
course.
when I think of somebody like eating extremely like mundane food day in and day out, chicken, boneless, skinless chicken breasts, white rice, spinach, and we're hitting these kinds of values, right? Almost everything. Like calcium is a bit low. Calcium is, I would say, a pretty important one. Like a lot of these have, I would say, a lot more impact than others. Oh, we just got a oh, did you see this most recent comment?
Yeah, I just responded.
Richard. Rip.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
Just if you could humble me on this quick.
Sure.
Throw in like 2 pieces of
Yeah, let's
pizza
do it.
for me, a large Coca-Cola. Um, Give me a second. I'm just trying to like articulate every person I've ever worked with and what they've ate and try to give you the most generic ones that I see the most when I first start
Cool.
with people.
How do I
Let's do
delete?
2 pieces of pizza for dinner, a large Coke.
Coke or Diet Coke?
Just do normal Coke for now.
Reggie?
Yeah.
Reggie Coke?
Yeah.
This is a full ass pizza, so maybe let's go with half a. What'd you say? Two slices or?
Yeah, do like 0.25 for now. Whatever equates out to be like 2,200 calories for the day. Let's do that.
Okay, so this is
Let's
one
do.
meal at 700 calories so far.
Yep, and then let's do because I'm gonna go off of a weekend.
Okay.
Let's do brunch. Let's do. Oh, actually, you know what? What would be a normal day? I'm really trying to rack my brain right now just to give you the mean, which is very difficult.
Okay.
For lunch, let's do tuna sandwich, 3 cookies.
Tuna salad sandwich. Tuna melt. Tuna salad.
Do tuna melt.
Tuna melt.
Sounds really good right now, actually. And then
Some cookies.
yeah, cookies.
Well, how about some Oreos?
Yeah, that works. Do like 10 of them. Do like 400 or 500 calories worth.
10 cookies. 5 cookies. How about 268 calories? Or do you think 10?
Do 10. Oh yeah.
You think 10's the average? For the
I'll
mean?
make this quick. The average person I talk to is eating 2,800 to 3,000 calories on average daily without realizing it because the majority of my people lose weight starting almost irregardless of weight range, dude. It's weird.
Wow.
They typically lose weight pretty easily on 2,000 to 2,100 calories a day, give or take, right around there.
Okay.
So that means they're certainly around probably at 2,600 and up, 2,600 and up. Okay, and then lastly, let's do.
We're at 1,700 calories consumed so far.
Okay. Lastly, let's do chips and dip.
Chips and dip. Some chips, like just potato chips.
Whatever they would dip it in. So what kind of chips people usually? I'm not even a chip person.
Like maybe like those wavy ruffle chips.
Yeah. Do Ruffles. That's good. And then we'll do like some ranch dressing or something like that. Do like 300-400 calories worth.
350. And I do know a great dip. I'll bet you it's in here. Hell of a good dip. Come on. It ain't here. And if you're, oh, it is here. Yeah, buddy. I think it's a sour cream based dip. Anyways, if you are into chips and dip, this is a freaking unreal dip. 2 tablespoons. We're gonna double that. 4 tablespoons at least. Actually, maybe even triple that. 6 tablespoons. All right, so now we're at just about 2,200 calories. We got chips and dip. We got cookies. We got a Sando. We got some pizza. We got a Coke.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's see what we got for just for that. Let's just see.
All right.
And see if there's any vitamins and minerals in there that are actually pretty low or deficient that you'd qualify as like potentially in the lower end, and see what we hit pretty well and easily.
All right, so vitamins off the start. So this isn't every vitamin, but these are the ones that are usually the easiest to grab, like from this nutritional info. The first one, like this honestly doesn't raise any flags to me. B5 being at 54%, A being at 61, maybe. This is the first one that I'm like, maybe we should address this. Vitamin C and vitamin D are 20% and lower. And then other than that, potassium is low, 48%. Zinc is 51%.
And protein.
I don't even know. Yeah, it's very common to see protein like that. Hey.
Yeah. Yep.
Magnesium is kind of low. Again, if there's a specific condition, and I see this, I'm like maybe. then I'll be like, yo, like go talk to your, like go get some blood work, or I don't know. But if they're in like a relative, like a general pop healthy person,
Yeah.
I see this and I'm like, that's not bad. You are like,
Now,
if this is the average, like you're hitting most, like in a pretty decent way. This isn't perfect, obviously, but
yeah,
the whole idea that I guess I'm trying to challenge here is that a lot of people think that if we're not hitting, like let's say for potassium, right? Potassium says this is for me, right? Because I think it's based off me being 180 pounds. It says
yeah,
my daily target, and this is an adequate intake, right? So using Chronometer, I can actually go and look, and I know an adequate intake is in the absence of having an RDA. We have an RDA when we actually have enough data to suggest that 95 to 98% of like the general healthy population, this should be the RDA on average. So this isn't even an RDA, which just gives me even less confidence in saying like, holy smokes, we need to up that, right? It might
yeah,
be a place to look at and say, hey, we're kind of low there, but this is an AI adequate intake level, and we're already at 50% there. So is it going to be bad if we stay at 50%? I don't know. I don't think so. Could it be? Maybe. I can't like
sure. That makes
rationalize
sense.
like what reason it could be bad. Uh, D, I could try to rationalize here. Like D is low enough at 19%. We have an adequate intake. Again, we don't, what does D have an RDA? These guys have
Probably somewhere in between. There's probably like 1,000 IU, maybe
right. So
1,500.
here again, they're listing an AI and an upper limit because D in particular, you can have too much of, and it can lead to adverse effects.
Yeah,
So if I'm over here sitting at 19% of an AI, is that a bad thing? Again, I'm not really ready to call it bad because
sure.
I don't know what it's going to do that is bad. Um,
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to like
and I
see, like if there is a pattern, because obviously like, I'm not an MD. I'm curious what the MDs are looking for then to say, hey, you are very deficient in this and this, which typically is coming about, in my opinion, from this is a typical diet in general, to be frank. Like this is pretty normal, or even potentially less calories from nutrient. Like we picked a
mm,
tuna melt, which has got dairy in it, it's got some protein in it. Typically it's not even that. It's typically more
yeah,
of the carb base. So I
yeah,
would say this is on the higher end, but it kind of, to your point, is showing that most of the multivitamins can be hit pretty adequately, even on a shittier diet.
yeah,
But I'm trying to see if there is an underlying pattern in what MDs are looking for when they say, yeah, this, to the low end of the AI that we're seeing typically in many obese Americans is why they're recommending supplementing vitamin D in the
hmm
1,000 to 2,000 IU category. And if they do say anything else, it's like multivitamin just to cap everything else off. Better be safe than sorry. But with a shitty diet like this, you're hitting, like you said, most of them. It's just really one or two that, because if you scroll over vitamin C and vitamin D real quick, do vitamin D first because it shows the normal foods. Like to the left where it shows the actual word, vitamin D. Yeah. So it says fish, salmon, mackerel, sardines, egg yolks, fortified milk.
hmm
So things Americans never eat.
yeah, yeah,
Things
true.
Americans never eat. And
Yeah,
it's just because it's the pattern I've been seeing, man. Like over the past 4 or 5 years, it's like always never getting enough sunlight, never outside being active, and not having a balanced diet. So if you take maybe 3 to 4 years of having 19% of your daily intake or adequate intake, maybe that is why that's coming up. And to your point, MDs aren't recommending daily multivitamins because they understand that most of this shit's getting taken in already. No problem.
hmm yeah, I think the average, like even the average diet, like average American diet, average like even just like developed world diet hits more than I think a lot of people think. And like that paired with like this overweighing of like importance of like meeting X amount of IUs or milligrams or micrograms kind of just like creates this general idea that if you're not hitting the RDA, it's a bad thing or it's unhealthy or it's going to lead to bad health outcomes. And it's just not, yeah, it just hasn't shown to be the case. The RDAs have shown to be like a good thing. Like, hey, if you get this much, it looks good. If you get this much, it looks good. If you
Yeah,
get too
that's a
much, it
fair
looks
point.
bad. If we're a standard deviation or two away from that average that we're recommending, is a bad thing going to happen? In vitamins D, like vitamin D is extremely important in facilitating calcium utilization. So when you have too much of it, you can have too much calcium in the blood, which is really, really bad. When you have too little of it, it can be tough to like to actually utilize calcium.
Gotcha.
Calcium is like one of the most important things when it comes to your, without calcium, like you can't move. Your body ceases to move. So calcium is absolutely essential, which means vitamin D is absolutely essential. It's like the meat of the argument there comes down to like, is 20% of this AI that's been derived from some research data, is if we're at 20% of that value for a week or a year, let's say, is that bad? I think in some people it could lead to bad outcomes, and in others
Yeah.
it might not. So it's,
Mm.
yeah, it's a lot messier, I think, than like a lot of these RDAs and AIs make it look or make it seem.
Yeah, no, that's totally. And I'm only playing like devil's advocate here to see
No,
like,
fair enough. Like that is
because it
that's
is all over the place, man. Like it's like, well, then we could just essentially tell nobody to supplement anything because we, even with the worst diet possible in America, we've typically only seen the same issues with high blood pressure, diabetes, and you know, and hypertension, heart disease. So
hmm
if those are really still the main three things that are coming from poor food choices, we'll call it, and not vitamin deficiencies, you know,
hmm
I
Yep.
feel like I feel like data would have been obvious and shown it, like it's been very obvious on hypertension, diabetes,
hmm
heart disease, all
Yeah.
that stuff. And that's just
Yeah.
me kind of talking out loud here, if you will, because this is all really interesting and awesome stuff. Because
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
I mean, dude, like this is, you go to that healthier diet we just had plugged in here, and it was similar. It was also very low
yeah.
in vitamin C and vitamin D. So that's like where
Yeah.
even for me, when I was eating healthier, if you will, and I was still supplementing vitamin D, how much is that really needed? That's even very cloudy. And we just, to be frank, I guess until you start seeing a really clear correlation through meta-analysis studies of people having severe issues because of something honest and transparent, like a vitamin D shortage,
hmm
what can you say other than so far it seems fine? Like,
Yeah.
I guess that's the answer. And I don't know what a doctor would have to see to say otherwise. Maybe they do look at calcium usage. Maybe they look at something like that as their only trigger. That'd be a good question for Dr. Shredecki, to be honest. Maybe she'll know.
Yeah.
It could be a good question because it's like, hey, what is it that you guys are looking for then? Because like, look at these two examples. Like this is wild. Should people be spending $8, $10 per bottle of whatever vitamin or even a supplement unless they're absolutely at critical levels from blood work? Otherwise, just like anything else, is
hmm
is is it a big old waste of money for the most part, and mostly placebo effect going on
hmm
here?
Yeah, man. Well, that line of thinking that you just went through was unreal, because I agree with everything you said. Um, Especially the first part that you went to, just to kind of like examine like potentially bad outcomes or like bad health effects, is like, well, is like being deficient here leading to any problems with our big issues like diabetes, hypertension, the heart diseases, the CVDs, group of diseases? And it's not really. Like that's where most of the data is right now, because that's like where the biggest impact is. It's like
Sure.
investigating whether or not like supplementing things will have an effect on cancer, will it have an effect on diabetes? Will it have an effect on cholesterol? Will it have an effect on heart disease, stroke, CVD, shit like that? So
Yeah.
I'll bring up another just like quick set of tabs here, where it's just like going through, basically it's a lot of medical journals that are investigating this. It's not so much like your everyday researchers, and a lot of their investigations are looking at like the stuff that you like when you went through that line of thinking that you brought up. Um, so this is just a generic search. So I encourage anybody and everybody, if you want to like go down to where a lot of these recommendations or like numbers or values are coming from, you can almost always find kind of what they're distilling it from. If you
Mm-hmm.
go to PubMed, this is a really good one when it comes to like actual Medicine, or MDs, the internal medicine annals. PubMed is another great one. Even Google Scholar is pretty darn good nowadays. And I just went through a few of them, like as they pertain to investigating like some of the big stuff. So vitamin, mineral, and multivitamin for the prevention of CVD and cancer. And again, lots of times, almost all of these is they're trying to pull data from a whole bunch of studies. So I don't know if these guys, oh no, these guys might have actually done it themselves. Efficacy of multivitamins in the general population. Applies to healthy adults. So I don't have their methods here, but I'm guessing they pulled a whole bunch of data from a few studies. The current evidence is insufficient to assess the balance of benefits and harms, right? There's a potential of harms from taking multivitamins, just like there's a potential of benefits for the prevention of CVD in cancer. Concludes the current evidence is insufficient to assess the balance of benefits and harms for prevention of CVD or cancer. Now, lots of times what you might see is very specific nutrient or very specific vitamin recommendations when it comes to very specific conditions. Like here, they recommend against B-carotene and vitamin E when it comes to CVD and cancer. So they must have seen some sort of like statistically significant adverse effect with these specific nutrients or vitamins, right?
But still very like one-off, very outlier
Yeah.
kind of
Yep.
statements.
Yep. This is looking at after myocardial infarction, which is a heart attack, whether or not making sure you're hitting your vitamins is going to help prevent that. So here they did actually do a double-blind placebo study. This is the gold standard when it comes to research, when you're actually doing a randomized control. Oh, actually, I don't know if it's RCT. Yep. When you're doing a blinded randomized control trial, that is where we really distill like the best information from. It's really tough to do that because we don't really get to tell everybody how to run their studies. So when we aggregate data into some sort of like meta-analyses, like some of these other tabs will be,
Yeah.
we're pulling from studies with a whole bunch of methodologies, right?
Yeah.
So here, nice subject size, a nice study design, really like it. Randomly assigned, and they're looking at following cardiac myocardial infarction or myocardial infarction, so cardiac or heart attack. And let me get down. So I am being an abstract scientist right here. If you want to actually like dig into it, you should read a little bit longer than this. Median follow-up, patients receive vitamins for 31 months, yada, yada, yada. Totals. Where's my, oh, I'm not even in the right place. High dose oral vitamins did not statistically significantly reduce cardiovascular events. However, this conclusion is tempered by the non-adherence rate. So they think there might have been people not actually adhering to the program. Right?
God damn it.
It's again tough. Long-term multivitamin.
Plus, talk about a weird demographic to pull together, man. People that just had heart attacks, people get ready to have heart attacks. Like,
Yep.
dude,
Long-term.
I'd be curious if they have anything about just in general. I think they have these more so targeted towards vitamin C and vitamin D, of course, for obvious reasons. In terms of mental health and how somebody feels throughout the day, that's something I need to really refresh myself on. Maybe outside of the scope of what we're talking about a bit. Just because that's typically one of the ones where it may not have adverse health effects from a physiological standpoint, but maybe a mental standpoint could pose benefits.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, and just nature of the beast there, so tough to measure, right? So tough.
What a shit show.
Whenever we're here, especially in like the internal medicine journals, they're looking very, very specifically, right? Like case studies of specific
They're not going to
points.
waste their time on vague.
So these guys, so this was looking at cognitive change. They found that there was no difference. So here over in PubMed, I did a little bit more of a general search where I tried to target just a little more general. We're not looking at somebody who might have just had a heart attack so this is looking at just multivitamin supplementation, meta-analysis of RCTs. So these guys tried to pull a whole bunch of randomized control trials together So this might be a little more indicative as opposed to looking at a medicine journal of a specific condition. And this was looking specifically at mortality. They wanted to know if, like, in general, are the people who are taking multivitamins living longer? That seems like a metric that should increase if they're like having some sort of like positive outcome on health. And they found that multivitamin and multimineral treatment had no effect on mortality.
Jesus, what a
So
mess. It's just like
they're
legit about to fall into. It's like
so
we have so much access to food these days that it's seemingly for now a non-issue because it's also very difficult to go over the limit unless you really try hard, kind of like aspartame almost.
I do think as a general statement that's probably applicable in almost all cases. So I'll
In the
try.
United States, in the United
Yeah,
States,
in
I'm
the
talking
United
about.
States, in the developed worlds more so.
Huh.
I'll try to reiterate here, like, I do not have a negative view of multivitamins. I'm just not so sure that they are like that beneficial as they're purported to be. And
Yeah.
if you don't have a specific goal or issue that you're targeting, it might not be doing the job that you think it's doing in a lot of cases, right? So again, here was a big systematic review. They found multivitamin use within the range will not exalt or does not increase mortality. These findings, but they found that they were safe for long-term use. So if they're helping you target a specific deficiency, they seem to be safe.
Mm.
But it looks like we haven't really found too many kind of like big broad effects, right? You'll find different areas where a specific condition was helped by a specific nutrient, but often, like in a general sense, a multivitamin isn't kind of lending to helping to prevent CVD or increase mortality or decrease diabetes, like really have any sort of really big like marked effect that we can really see, you know?
That's
So
totally fair.
a lot of these did end up like kind of just saying like no effect on, no effect on. There are, like, if you do go and look, you will be able to find positive effects, but it will almost always be very specific to a certain condition, a certain deficiency, and it might be because of a specific nutrient in whatever supplement they give that population. So let's take this away, and now I'll try to make a clean and clear final statement of what I think about multivitamins. Where the heck was that other tab? Here we go. Now, do I think multivitamins are good? I don't know. Do you think multivitamins are good, Ryan?
I know well enough, such a strain with you. It's not really a good thing to have a blanket statement like that. Um,
Very nice. Yeah.
they're good. They're good in terms of providing, overall health, but what that looks like, I think, is misunderstood by a lot of people. And just like that, they're probably not bad either, unless once again, poison is usually typically in the dosage here, or in this case, the lack thereof, right? But we're seeing that it's very hard to get to do that, unless in a very one-off case. At least in the developed world, it's very difficult to be very under. So
Yeah. So this is, I think, my position, my statement when it comes to multivitamins. They can be good, they can be bad, they can be neutral. Just like almost everything. The big operative word here being can. They can be, right? Context, context, context is king in in these sciences, in physiology and where we have some sort of like cause and effect and going on. So I bet especially you could have like you just called it right away before I even started typing. But yeah, it's impossible to make blanket statements out here, like I think is what the multivitamin companies are trying to do. Obviously, right? They're trying to sell bottles of multivitamins, so they want the general idea about multivitamins to be positive.
aren't they supposed
And
to be regulated too? Don't they have to be careful on verbiage on these damn things?
I don't know. I think they get to be pretty artistic. I think they get to be pretty
Dude, that's so wild to me. I
creative.
had a client who's visiting. Where is she? She's somewhere in Europe, and they're like, yeah, they just don't even have calorie counts here. And it's
What?
like legit. Like I
That's
have a
pretty
lot of clients
crazy.
that will visit overseas or actually overseas, and although I thought that there were rules guidelining that restaurants and places of business that are serving food have to have calorie counts and everything, bro,
Mm-hmm.
you already know that that's like never the case.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've noticed is that in Europe, it's like exponentially more difficult. Like just exponentially, there's no calorie counts on anything, like
Mm.
ever. Packaged stuff, yes, that's an obvious thing typically, but for like
Yeah.
going out to eat and that kind of stuff, like it's way more prevalent here in America, is what I've noticed. So it just kind of like got me on a tangent there, but like it's kind of
Interesting.
crazy how something that's supposed to be so regulated and is so important to overall health, like you said, can have a lot of freedom with verbiage and
Mm-hmm.
or restaurants just not posting shit about this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
crazy to me, man.
Yeah,
It's
I
like it's
agree.
like highway robbery over here.
Yeah. Yeah. The one last thing that I'm going to encourage, maybe we'll talk about it in a future episode. We're already an hour in, so I'm just going to encourage people to go look at it if they're really interested, maybe yourself included. And that was, if I can find my tab, I've got so many goddamn tabs open. Oh, here we are. And that was specifically pertaining to vitamin D. Vitamin D is one that's gotten a butt ton of attention as of late, uh, especially around the C word, right? There's been lots of people saying, well, I'm not even going to go into it actually. Just going to say it's been more so uh, in the face of people because of the C word. And really, like, there's been lots of swings with lots of supplements and vitamins and minerals where it's like, hey, this is really, really important. I think it was like either early 2000s or maybe 90s that there was a huge like kick on vitamin D. Like, yo, you need to be getting vitamin D. And then it kind of went away again. And then it came back. Very similar to the way like the cycle of like certain diets coming into fads or into popularity, you know?
Yeah.
This is an awesome dive with a couple of MDs here into vitamin D. I highly recommend to listen if you are currently of the opinion that like vitamin D is like a super vitamin or like it's doing like people need to be supplementing with vitamin D because I know I don't it's a crazy number like 50% of probably my friend maybe not 50% but a lot of like my friends and family are buying vitamin D specifically or have already started supplementing with vitamin D or like yo are saying things like yo you need to start taking vitamin D. um, I would encourage you to watch this episode and then go investigate some of the resources and uh, sources that they cite in it. It is
Awesome.
just a great talk. This person in particular is part of Barbell Medicine. That's like a group of two guys that I follow that I find to be extremely based and like moderate in their takes and not they're not quick to like what's the word I'm looking for? Not fan to like idolize like a specific substance, right? They'll go and look like when is it good? Okay, it can be good. Why is it good then? Can it be bad? Oh, it looks like it can be bad. Why is it bad then? And they just seem to like actually go into the intricacies and the nuance, and
Yeah.
that's so important in physiology sciences that a lot of people again are looking for clicks and they're looking to sell you solutions. A lot of people in this industry they're there to sell you the solution and the answer because then they get the follow, they get the click, they get the like or whatever the heck it might be, So yeah, if you're interested in vitamin D, maybe yeah, probably not today, but we could talk about reference vitamin D in the future for sure. And yeah, if you're interested, go watch that sucker because it's awesome.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So that's my super hot take on the vitamins and the minerals. I don't
Dude,
know.
no, it's a good one. It just
Not really a
gives me
hot take.
a lot of great points to allow us to really clear out more of the fog, right? As
Mm-hmm.
pertains to, hey, what is the actual starting point people should be focusing on? And
Yeah.
if even remotely part of the conversation is this outside of a blood panel that suggests otherwise, it's like, just don't, you know?
Mm-hmm.
of course, it's like not like, hey, just don't worry about anything at all. But unless you have a blood panel suggesting otherwise, your MD's saying that there's issues. Stop spending money on this stuff.
Yeah, that's I guess
Probably a
probably
really
like
hot take.
probably like the bigger influencer for me is like I'm pretty frugal, so
Yeah.
I just like don't want to spend the money there. I
Yeah,
think
I mean, dude, with vitamin D, I did I think 1,000 IU and it have been for a long time. That's only because for like $3, I got like 3 months worth. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So it was
So
incredibly cost efficient.
yeah, when it comes to cost, like that could be that the juice could be worth the squeeze there, right? If it's $3 to kind of insure whatever, then that could be worth it. If it's I've bought multivitamins for sure in the past, definitely in the past 5 years. I can't remember the last bottle I bought, but I've bought them. 100% I bought them. Guys, I almost bought Mike Chang's ab workout when I was 19 or 20 or whatever the fuck I was. So you can trust I bought the fat. I've bought it all. Well, I guess not all. I never bought SARMs or any shit like that, but I bought the fat burners. I bought the fuck. I can't even remember all the dumb shit I bought. Did GNC, man? I was like, ooh, cool.
Talk about shit that gets away with verbiage.
Yeah,
GNC products.
yeah, man.
Or just really a lot of supplement products. They
Yeah,
get a pass. At
yeah. The
least they
whole
actually operate under a different rule set, I feel like. Or is
yeah.
that
There's
not
a
true?
no. I think you that is true.
I
There's a
thought
really
they did.
good like the FDA is like kind of like I think the governance of FDA is like all fucked up too. Um, do you know who Mark Bell is?
Mm-mm.
The guy who created the slingshot?
I've never heard of it, but it
No,
sounds
it's
derpy.
slingshot is like a people use it when they're lifting or training. It's basically like an
Oh,
implement
okay.
that goes, you put your arms through it and then it goes over your chest and it kind of like uh, stretches and it allows you to like lift more weight when you're benching, basically, especially off the bottom because it's. Anyway, he's pretty popular in the fitness world. One of the guys I followed way back in the day. He's got a pretty popular podcast called The Strong. I don't know what it's called. Anyways, his brother Chris Bell has a really really good documentary. I don't know if it's on Netflix or not, but it was called Bigger, Faster, Stronger, and it kind of he investigates that a little bit, and then he did a follow up uh, documentary called Prescription Thugs as well, that also kind of like gives you a deeper look at the underpinnings and governance of like the FDA and like pharmaceutical industry and shit, and how it's like seems pretty wonky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, shit. This was really good to see. I figured as much that this was going to be what you were going to say. It was good to get confirmation on that from in here from your perspective. So, I mean, it's cleared up my end of things, and my own personal decision will probably be not to buy multivitamins anymore, for sure, especially the calorie counts that I'm typically on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Like I think again, like for me specifically, I think if I had a bigger bottom line, like it to me, like maybe if that gives like it might give you peace of mind. If it gives you peace of mind or whatever, the like if it makes, I'm not here to like tell people to stop buying them,
oh, of
you
course.
know?
Well, you're
Uh
talking strictly from a like an efficiency standpoint, not even like
yeah.
cost. Like, of course, if you want
Yeah.
to buy placebo,
Hmm.
H2O pills, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
we're not going to say not to. It's your money, but in
Some
terms of
sugar
like
pills.
efficiency standpoint, yeah, sugar pills.
Yeah.
Um, it's just it's probably not needed, or could even potentially take you over quite a bit in some of them,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
depending what goes down, whether or not it's taking it through water or fat, right, in the body,
Hmm.
like you said.
Yeah. That honestly might be the one of the biggest like pieces of information that's missing is that as mu just as much, if not more so, do they have the potential to cause harm. Like it,
Just
right?
like anything, right?
Like everything that we looked at, it's like, well, based on the evidence and the prospect for harm, we can't really advise taking them,
Yeah.
right? Like the uh, risk, the cost analysis there is just doesn't quite add up in a lot of cases, but in some cases it might. So yeah.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah.
I know
should we
we
send
lost everybody to Richard Hart,
our
but
last few people over to Richard? Yeah, we got
right.
rugged by Richard midstream.
Hey, it's okay. People come back and watch these, and like
Yeah,
it's still one person. Like be like, oh, Richard's streaming. It's like, guys,
Yeah.
we're not gonna like stop what we're doing. You know,
Yeah.
obviously you're gonna probably go watch him, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Like that's why YouTube hosts the channel, so you can go back and watch. You know.
Yeah.
And I have to imagine Richard's not talking about this stuff. No offense to Richard, but
Yeah,
my guess is he's not doing
definitely
this.
not.
So we can both coexist, albeit he'll get way more views, and rightfully so. That is totally fine.
For now.
Right? For now.
Yeah.
I still think we'll get him as a viewer one of these days.
One day, I think we got a good shot at that.
I think he's gonna pop in here. We're gonna have to screenshot it, like pull up one of his comments, like, "Holy shit,
yeah.
Richard's here talking to us about the slingshot."
Yeah, or about his tuna. What is it? His tuna and when he talks about his diet, he's like, "Well, I had a can of tuna and there's another thing that he sometimes eats, but that's his go-to for dieting is like just cans of tuna." I think.
Interesting strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I think he would see a lot of value in watching some of our shows.
Yep. Agreed.
But anyways, yeah, I'm good to cut it here. Quick and effective, to the point. People can come in, see what they need to see, and keep it moving. Some of these are better that way, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, good little deep dive on generic vitamins. I think maybe like we might have some need for vitamin D in the future, but I don't know, like kind of referenced it there pretty solidly. And I think like if I'm telling you, if you're still here and watching, watch that podcast, especially if you like vitamin D. It is, yeah, it's unreal.
Good stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Let's hit it there.
I'll be the only person that'll care about that. To be fair, it must be so bored.
Man, I'm gonna go watch it. I'm gonna go watch it again for sure.
Yeah, because I just keep seeing that across the board. Doctors keep telling people they're vitamin D deficient, and I'm like thinking to myself, like, okay, but like nobody's also dying. So like, what is the actual the actual deal here? Because I used to live in New York, where everybody is on paper, I guess, vitamin D deficient, but you don't have entire states having like obvious issues here. So clearly, to some point, it's like just take it a little bit higher. It could help. It may not fucking matter. It's like, okay, well then, what are we actually doing here? You know. So yeah, it's definitely something that's consistently changing throughout. But we have a final comment here. How about something like HMB? What's HMB mean?
I think it's one of those that gets chucked in a you get chucked in pre-workouts pretty often. I think here. Oh, I'm thinking of something else.
Here we go.
HMB.
Hydroxymethylbutyrate? I think that's what he means. It's being touted as being able to enhance gains in strength and lean muscle mass.
Yeah, so this is not, I'm thinking of something else that goes in pre-workout. Beta-hydroxy-beta-methylbutyric acid, otherwise known as its conjugate base, hydroxymethylbutyrate, is naturally produced in humans, that is used as a dietary supplement, and as an ingredient in certain medical foods that are intended to promote wound healing and provide nutritional support for people with muscle wasting due to cancer or HIV/AIDS. This is Wikipedia that I'm reading. HMB has been shown to increase exercise-induced gains in muscle size, muscle strength, and lean body mass. It sounds I am a skeptic at heart, so it sounds too good to be true, just reading that. But who knows? I'm open. Improve exercise aerobic performance, expedite recovery, helps preserve lean body mass. Sold as a dietary supplement at a cost of about $30 to $50 per month when taking 3 grams per day. Interesting.
Yeah, it seems like it's almost like alongside creatine for some of the stuff that I'm already reading about. It's interesting.
HMB was discovered. I want to know if it's banned. Not been banned. As of 2018, HMB has not been banned by WADA or any other prominent organization. Interesting. Oh, ergogenic. Is interesting. Yeah, I would definitely look into this a little bit more. I'll put this on my list of things to look into. Maybe once we curate a list that's long enough, we could do kind of a list of hot supplements like this.
Probably
I
put
don't.
that one on there. Put creatine on there. Put vitamin D on there.
Hell yeah.
Whey protein versus casein protein. Let's see what else people ask me about 24/7.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely a future episode for sure. On like,
Yeah.
whereas you know the answer is like most of the time it's like you guys are literally just eating on average 50 grams of protein a day. Like please just up your protein intake, and all these supplements will be. They can still be helpful, but
Yeah.
most guys are just like cutting their gains in half 24/7
Mm-hmm.
because they just can't manage protein intake on a daily basis or even like a weekly, But anyway, I digress. Another episode for sure.
Yeah. Human
But
biome. Yeah, I want to know, where it's synthesized by us, because it's synthesized in the human body. So it's definitely not prominently looked at when we go through just like a normal, like top-down metabolic process. So
yeah,
I will definitely check it out.
good stuff.
Thank you, Functional Crypto, and a very nice comment here from Kyler. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Connor's dope. Always supporting the Hex community, man. Killing out there. Freaking good at skateboarding and acting. Pretty cool.
Mm. Nice. I think that's a good. We should try to maybe work towards. Bet you we could get closer to doing that next week, just with that list: HMB, vitamin D, creatine, protein, whey versus casein versus soy versus.
Soy. Remember that
There's.
one combo about soy?
Yeah. Yeah. That might be it. Well, maybe we'll talk about doing that for next week or something else.
Another good would be meal timing to really just
Ooh.
destroy the like intermittent fasting zealots that are out there, right? Just talk about meal timing, like what's the most optimal, all this stuff, and I think that could be another good one too. But we could chat
Oh
about later in the week.
yeah, man. I
You hear about meal
I
timing?
think that would be a great standalone topic.
Yeah.
I like that topic a lot, and like I'm always ready to bust the IF people's balls on that because
Right, because it's
they
literally the same conversation all the time. I'm
they
like,
come in and talk about how
oh,
fasting is like anabolic and good for gains and shit, and I'm like, nope, nope, no, it's not. Do you know any bodybuilder that fasts for 18 hours plus? Do you know any strongman that fasts for 18 hours plus?
oh my god, I know. It's like, dude, that's like the ongoing theme here, man. Is just people in this industry in general keep taking advice and listening to people that are nowhere near the top 1% of performers, whether it be an actual professional athlete, natty or
Mm-hmm.
not, right, on
Yeah.
steroids or not, or PhDs, people who are actually doing, the research and the work and also look the part at the same time, and they're out there. So it's like, y'all are not listening to broke people on the street on how to invest, right?
Yeah.
Listening to Richard Hart probably. If Richard
Yeah.
was broke, would you be listening to him? I mean, I hope not. I hope not. Richard doesn't appear to be broke though. So same thing here, man. Like people just like, oh well, so and so told me that intermittent. It's like, dude, when is intermittent fast? Like I feel like this trend has lasted longer than all the other ones, man. Keto, like they're all like these like 4 month cycles. But intermittent fasting has just been like stuck, dude.
Yeah. It has
Just
been there
stuck.
for a long time.
Dude, it's just like stuck to the front. And it's like all it did was gain momentum with like the Pelotons. There's just like the Peloton and that all at the same time. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Anywho,
Yep.
I'm not going to get riled up on that stuff because I'm too tired to do that right now. But I appreciate everybody who tuned in tonight. Even the people that are still here right now, probably nobody at this point, but the people who were here, thank you for tuning in, especially when
Yep.
Richard was going live. And hopefully you guys see some value to tune in later and check us out. We are here every Monday, but I'll let Exercise do that line.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of happened that way. We will be here Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. We will see you then. Thanks, everyone.